What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Lieutenant Nathaniel Flint of the Landship Scorpios, and today we're going to be going over some of the scenarios. That's right, I thought it would be interesting to go over some of the scenarios in a very small series or just a video, depending on how quickly I get through them and how short the video can be. Just going over the scenarios we had. These are from the work in progress PDFs, work in progress. And I thought it'd be interesting to go through, maybe talk a little bit of tactics. One of the things I have decided on this series is I will not be doing the scenarios from the campaign or the Nemoan campaign. I might do like an excerpt, one or two. But I feel that we're very close to release, and I do want to do videos like this. I've never got around to doing them for classic RIvet Wars, but I did want to do little reviews of the scenarios that come in the box. And I never got a chance to go around and do those. So I do want to do those. I don't want them to all be from the work in progress. But this is something I wanted to do from the work in progress PDFs. So we're going to be going based off of the work in progress Battle of Rivets scenarios. So these are from the core set in these videos, and we're gonna go ahead and do a few. So this video is going to be a little bit different. We're going to discuss as well how to set up a scenario with the first one, which will be the basic training tutorial scenario. So in RIvet Wars, classic RIvet Wars, we did have kind of like demo rules where they had a suggested toned down version of the game, and I did a video a while back on a literal demo set that some people were given that was an entirely, like, it was a mat, demo mat, not tiles like RIvet Wars has done, with a handful of specific units. Reloaded takes this and makes a tutorial scenario. This is also detailed in the rule books on how to set up a scenario. But it's super simple. It's a little bigger, but still manages to be really small for a RIvet Wars map. So it is like perfectly set up for a scenario. And it's assumed that when you are learning the game for the first time, or if you're teaching a new player, this is the easiest way to get them in the fight, understanding the core mechanics immediately. And it's for that reason that we are going to be using this as a template of how we're going to talk about scenarios. So we're going to discuss how to set it up and how to read a scenario page. And then we are going to basically going through them like we're about to go through. So I'm going to be discussing, for the most part, on a base level, Allied and Blight, kind of what I think they could do, like a little bit of strategy stuff, how I think the general feel of the map is going to be, likes and dislikes, as well as maybe some notes on Nemoan strategy, but I think I might save those for the Nemoan scenarios specifically once the game is out in public. So once fulfillment happens. So let's get right in. Let's start with this one, basic training. So first, it says we're going to need some game tiles, and it lists out the game tiles. So these are the tiles. In Reloaded, we get a bunch of collections of them. So there's the classic RIvet Wars 3x3 tile. But remember, in Reloaded, we get a few extras. Plus, you can use some of the one area tiles, bunkers, or SOs on their own outside the map. So it's going to tell you what to use. So it gives us all the game tiles. It also gives us how much bunkers and strategic objectives we need. And then you're going to take those, you're going to arrange them the way that the map of the scenario tells you to arrange them. So here we can see that we've got two of these tiles around a no man's land 3x3, and then it shows us to put bunkers on the outside here. It will also tell you what mission cards to set up, and tells you what order these mission cards will be set up in. So this will be on our mission cards video when we eventually do that, or if it's already out, we will go through those. But you're going to sort through the mission cards and set them up. That'll be set up on the side with mission card like tokens over the ones that are closed, because they open up on the second turn. Turn order, randomly determine the first player. So this is in defending or attacking or some other storyline based scenario. You may want to stipulate which player actually goes first, whether it be a specific faction or whether it be defenders or attackers. So this is where to put this. A lot of scenarios that we're going to see, I think, are going to be built for not just single play, but also randomized like campaign play. So we're going to see a lot that are just going to say randomly determine. I don't remember if they give us an example of how to randomly determine, but flip a coin or something. It's a game. You've done this before in a million other games. Do rollies, who rolls higher. You'll figure it out. The scenario will also dictate what resources to use. So those come in deployment points or rivets. So it will tell you how many you get per round for each player, or it will dictate which player, attackers, defenders, Allied, Blight, Nemoan, etc., which ones get different deployment points. Victory conditions is for each scenario. Will tell you what the victory conditions are, how to win. So this will usually be, again, there's two ways to win a RIvet Wars Reloaded scenario: through victory points and through completing a mission cards. And then any special rules that go along with the scenario, which we can discuss, as well as solo rules for if people are playing with Colossus using the solo rules. So just keep all that in mind. So let's start off with actually going through basic training. So it tells us for our mission cards, we're going to be setting up Supremacy. We're going to be setting up the Bigger Picture. We're going to be setting up Elimination, Boots on the Ground, and lastly, Assassination. So let's go over those real quickly to figure out what these mission cards will mean. So first off is Supremacy, which we can see occupy every strategic objective during a turn. Instead of scoring victory points from these objectives, you instead complete this mission. So that's the first one that'll open up on round 2. Secondly, the Bigger Picture. Occupy strategic objective during a turn. Instead of scoring VPs from that objective, you may instead complete this mission. So that's the second one. Next up is Elimination. Destroy 3 or more enemy units in a single turn. Then you will achieve this mission. Next up is Boots on the Ground. Have a friendly infantry unit in enemy territory. And last but not least is Assassination. Destroy an enemy hero unit. All in all, these are pretty simple objectives that are opened up one after another. You need to achieve 3 of them. We'll talk about that in the victory conditions in 2 seconds. I don't know. It seems pretty straightforward. A lot of stuff based on holding down objectives. Very simple. That's what you're teaching in this version. So resources are also extremely simple. You only get, each player gets 3 deployment points and no rivets. So this is going to extremely limit the kind of units you can put out on the field. Victory conditions are first to 8 victory points or complete 3 mission cards to win the scenario. This is going to be pretty typical in RIvet Wars Reloaded for victory conditions. And special rules, limited reserve. So because it is a tutorial mission, this scenario does a cool thing by literally limiting the amount of units that are available to players during the game. So for the allies, they only can use 9 riflemen, 2 rocket cycle, 2 hammer 65 pounder, and the M2 Wolverine hero unit. For the Blight, they can only have 9 Panzerfaust, 2 Monowheel Dragoon, 2 MG08 Schlitten, and 1 Major Jaeger Moldenstein, who is the hero infantry unit. Reinforcements. During their deployment phase in round 3, the Allied player deploys the M3 Wolverine for free, and the Blight player deploys Major Jaeger Moldenstein for free. So that's how you're going to end up getting those units on the field, is a free deployment 3 rounds into the game. So what are we looking at here for a for a simple game. We can see that the first thing is we have Blight and Allied. Territory is extremely limited to only these tiles. We have a large brick of 3x3 no man's land in the very center with the strategic objective 3. And then we can see that they got even extra bunkers that also count as no man's land. Depending on how you interpret the territory rules, I guess these would also count as no man's land. The strategic objectives, because they're not colored. But I think they're just there for visibility reasons. I think these tiles are counting as territory. We can see that there is heavy use of trenches. So back here in the deployment points, each side gets deployed on a trench and on mud. But for the most part, this is all trench work in here. So it is definitely giving players an immediate knowledge of the runner special on their cards to move units up quite quickly, which in one movement, putting them here, can get them into their respective strategic objectives on each of their sides, and get up the line, getting ready to jump to this one in the following turn. There does not seem to be any way to quickly get units into combat immediately. It looks like it'll be quite a bit. You might be able to get out a hammer 65 pounder to, let's see, the first one wouldn't do it in round 1. So you move them up here and you get 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so both sides are going to be, for the most part, on their own, putting up flags in their respective SOs in their first control phases. Like, it's going to be a pretty even out thing for a few rounds as they rush forward into this no man's land area. We also have the inclusion of getting a free hero unit on round 3. So that's going to be able to do that assassination by the time the round 5 comes up, the 5th card. Actually, that'll end up being like round 6. So you've got a few rounds of basically waiting for the hero unit, which is a very interesting strategy. Do you wait until about round 6 to start trying to take out the enemy's hero so that you can get that additional mission card done? Or are you trying to get them out sooner to get that bounty so that you can continue to earn victory points a lot quicker? All in all, I can see these choke points being big for support and cavalry units because they're not able to enter the strategic objectives here. So having them basically get stuck, like if you are, spawning 2 Schlittens and putting them right up here to cover all this area, you're not going to be able to get your mono wheels through here. I guess you could jump your own unit, so it's not that big of a deal. But it's going to be a little bit of congestion in here, trying to hold down this. It's going to be really hard to break into the no man's lands to get all 3 strategic objectives to get that mission supremacy. That's going to be really difficult. But I do like that if you do achieve that, the goal is to get the mission card while you have the shot, not necessarily earning all the victory points. So that way, the other player who is most likely getting squashed at that point in order to lose all 3 and be pushed back this far just has that extra round of trying to get something done, because either they are scoring 3 victory points or they are scoring 1 mission card. So it's still a big deal. All in all, though, I do like this scenario. It's simple. It keeps everything extremely extremely simple. Limited units, so there's not a lot of confusions. They all share a lot of specials. You see a nice variety of attack types, with the monowheel getting that chain attack while the hammer pounder getting a blast attack kind of deal. Like, you get a nice collection of things and you get the idea of the differences between the 2 factions, with the allies having supremacy with the infantry units, but the Blight easily being able to take out a lot of units in these objectives and bunkers with Schlittens or monowheels that will be the monowheels will be able to easily move all over this map. So it does feel quite balanced at first glance. I think the obvious strategy, I guess what you would call, I mean, the point is to learn the game mechanics, and I think this will achieve that quite well. But I think the obvious strategy is to rush up at least one infantry as quickly as possible into getting this initial strategic objective. And then if you can, hope that you go first to get 1, 2 into here to also get an extra point being in there. And then try to shore up your respective bunker, whichever side you're on, with infantry to help, because most of them will have 2 range, the Riflemen and Panzerfaust. So 1, 2, 1, 2, getting right into that middle and just trying to hold it for as long as possible. I think for the allies, you're going to want Hammer Pounders to get up maybe 2 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. So even out of spawn, they're going to be able to get into here quite easily. So they are a solid unit. But you're probably going to move them up to try to make sure that they have more use getting all of No Man's Land and being able to support your forces, probably from this square right here. It makes sense you will want rocket cycles to be up in No Man's Land whenever possible to beat back what I'm about to say about the Blight. And you're going to want as many Riflemen as possible. The Riflemen are going to be really big. You're also going to want the Wolverine to be a support. He's a walking bunker with his bolster defense that he buffs. So you're going to want a lot of Riflemen behind him in the area attack order while he is supporting either your units here and camping out this to ensure it never gets caught, or doing a daring charge to hold this strategic objective from the Blight. From the Blight, I think you got to get the Schlitten out as soon as possible. Like, I think that needs to be almost a move 1 thing to ensure victory. This is going to be heavily infantry focused, and the Blight just cannot survive against the Riflemen like the Riflemen can survive against Panzerfaust. The move is to get support units out sooner than later. So probably the opening move is, you only get 3, is a Panzerfaust and a Schlitten, and move that Schlitten up to basically cover this No Man's Land as much as possible and capture that. When Moldenstein comes out, he's going to be able to buff range and be able to be very anti-infantry himself. I don't see why you would want to remove Moldenstein from this area and just have him cover No Man's Land while you're throwing mono wheels and Schlitten up to take the fight to the allies in their own territory and to try to control No Man's Land as much as possible. Overall, I really enjoy this map. I think that the mission cards are going to be able to be completed rather quickly. That's how I feel. I feel like it's going to take a while to get all the victory points. However, I do think that this is a great simple map that is still feels very balanced. It feels very different from Classic RIvet Wars with showing off the new tile types and having the standalone on the edge of the map. So it's going to feel really different, but it's very focused to teach players how RIvet Wars works. All in all, I love this. I love this as a demo scenario. Depending on the situation, I might still use like the old RIvet Wars demos scenarios or something. But I do feel that this is simple enough and will get the feeling across for a more robust demo scenario. And I have a feeling I'm going to be playing this one a lot with new players if I start doing demos or things at my local game store like I did with Classic RIvet Wars. And why don't we do a fun one? That was pretty quick. And now all the big stuff is out of the way. So let's talk about pitched battles. This is basically Classic RIvet Wars at its finest. Is 2 sides at a generalized battle. So in RIvet Wars, this would be a 3x3 tile set up, semi-even and symmetrical, and just have the 2 sides absolutely go head to head. So here are the game components of this work in progress. We'll go look at it right here. So this one is different from classic RIvet Wars. We can see that it's using only 3 of the 3x3 tiles here, but it is still kind of giving us that wideness by making use of the other tile types. So we see a 2x2 here and here. We see the 3x2 here and here. We can see a good use of strategic objectives and bunkers all over the place. It looks like this is one of the standalone trenches, which I think is on the opposite side of the bunkers and strategic objectives if you flip them. This is quite an interesting map. It's split down this way, so we can see Blight territory and Allied territory. And we can see that there are deployment points set up quite symmetrical, but a little bit farther away, giving yourself some room to spread out your units too. I really like the look of this already. Again, it's another twist on that 3x3 that we like. This also feels a little smaller, so it might fit a little easier on certain game tables if you're used to the 3x3 classic RIvet Wars being a little bit too narrow for your liking. So let's take a look at this real quick. Let's look at the mission cards. Infiltration, the bigger picture, elimination, battalion, and domination. First off, infiltration. Have a friendly unit in an enemy deployment area. Ooh, so this is like hyper Leroy Jenkins. You do get to put any unit you want. So this could be rushing up like a rocket cycle, like we were seeing there, or a monowheel. Could be using tunneler to get a like infantry unit or something spawned in there in a fun way with like an action card or something. But this is very interesting. The bigger picture: occupy a strategic objective during a turn. Instead of gaining points, you instead complete this mission. Very simple, very solid. I think this will be a common mission card used in the game. Elimination: destroy 3 or more enemy units in a turn. Battalion: have any combination of 3 or more friendly cavalry or support units in no man's land tiles. That's pretty solid and decently achievable. And domination: occupy 2 strategic objectives during a turn. Instead of scoring victory points from those, you instead complete this mission. This has a standard RIvet Wars deployment resources of 5 deployment points and 1 rivet to ensure you can get a wide variety of troops out onto the field. This is the first player to 10 victory points or complete 3 mission cards wins the scenario. And this will be, for the most part, a standard throughout RIvet Wars Reloaded. This introduces us to one of the special rules, which is shifting objectives. At the end of each round, the player with the fewest victory points may swap any one strategic objective with any one bunker on the battlefield. Remove any flag tokens on the swapped strategic objective, but leave all units in their original areas. If both players have the same amount of victory points, they're tied. Don't resolve this rule at all. So this is a super cool special rule. We kind of saw this during the Kickstarter when some people were given like demo versions of the game to try to play and get the feel for what Reloaded would end up being. We kind of saw some of that. So basically, if you are losing or falling behind as far as victory points are concerned, you can swap out any of the strategic objectives and bunkers. So we have 1, 2, 3 up here. So if you were the Allies and you started falling behind, you could take this Blight held strategic objective down here and swap it with a bunker, and then maybe swap it with this bunker up here. Maybe you're holding this area a lot easier. You make this a strategic objective instead, where you already have a team of guys sitting there waiting to go. All the units stay where they are. You're just refocusing what is considered, I guess, important on the battlefield. This could make it a lot easier for you to hold objectives, you're closer to their lines, but eventually that will mean that you catch up in victory points, and eventually the Blight will get a chance to switch some strategic objectives on their turns. And the idea of that is giving a little bit of ebb and flow, like a rubber banding effect to this much larger game than the tutorial one. From what we've heard from the people who played the review copies and did videos on them during the Kickstarter, this gave a really nice rubber banding effect and a changing of priorities throughout the game. It allowed the battlefield to always feel like the lines were literally changing. So I'm super excited to get a look at that myself when we get our hands on the game. Overall, I don't actually see this being anything that requires super specific strategy. My thought is you definitely want to keep trying to achieve objectives, but you don't want to always earn victory points. So maybe a strategy would be controlling areas of the map, but maybe not controlling the strategic objectives themselves, so that as these lines start to move and change, you kind of fall behind and are in a better position to get those back and keep them. You also want to try and basically score the mission cards whenever possible, because you are basically continuing to walk towards victory without gaining victory points and losing control of where those strategic objectives are. An easy one to gain in no time is going to be those mission cards that involve not scoring victory points but getting the missions for controlling strategic objectives. So I believe we have the bigger picture and domination involve those. So one is control 1 and one is control 2. And both of those make perfect sense to basically get 2 out of your 3 mission cards immediately done. The others involve like battalion, which is getting cavalry and support in no man's land. The no man's land we see is right here, is just this. So if your group says this entire tile is allied space, and this is all allied space, this Blight, these wouldn't count. But if you're saying, hey, these are not tinted like these are, I guess these would also count as no man's land, which would also make sense. But basically just trying to keep 3 cavalry or support in this center area. That is decently achievable, especially since your units are going to be spawning from all these areas to quickly and easily get in here. And from right here, I mean, one move, you could spawn 2 mono wheels, 3 mono wheel, and do 1-2 movement, 1-2 movement, 1-2 movement. And you have 3 in no man's land. Super simple. So I think that achieving missions is going to be where you win in this game. I think infiltration is doable, but I do believe that it is just too hard that you're not going to be able to achieve that mission as early as it's revealed in that second round or even third round. Like, that's just going to be one that is available for most of the game for if someone decides to make that play. And it could be easy as holding down here and going 1-2 into this deployment zone. So you might want to keep some support, some Schlittens or something in these deployment squares to ensure that enemy units can't just jump on your deployment zone. But also, for such a big map with a lot of options, like a lot of resources to deploy units, there does seem to be a little few deployment zones for the amount of resources and units we could use. So it does feel like the deployment zones themselves are a resource that, jumping in and preventing a deployment on that really could hurt a unit who might have deployment resources to spend, but no place to put them until the movement phase where they can get them out of these deployment zones. So there's a lot to consider with this map that makes doing strategies a little difficult at this time. I will say that if you get the reinforcements box, getting like a Uncle Rivet or the Iron Chancellor on any of these strategic objectives, that basically gives you another deployment zone where you could deploy infantry units in their space right on the strategic objective. That could help a lot. That could really be a problem for your opponent. So, I mean, that's all I got for strategy on this. And for now, I'm going to call that good. I'm going to call that done. That's 2 scenarios. A very quick thing. We talked about scenario setup and this scenario thing a bit. I'm going to call that good for now. So thank you guys so much for watching. Check out the other videos I did on the work in progress videos. For instance, talking about the core rules, or talking about the Nemoans, or any of the unit videos. Let me know what you think down in the video below. Do you think basic training is a decent map for teaching new players how to play RIvet Wars Reloaded? Do you like the change of pitch battles? How do you feel about the mechanic of moving around strategic objectives and bunkers based on who's winning or losing? Do you like that idea of that rubber banding effect in this board game, war game hybrid? And to keep this episode as short as it's going to be, I'm going to call that good for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. There's links to everywhere where RIvet Wars is being talked about down below, including the Discord where we specifically have strategy channels. So I will see you guys in the next video.